Hello kids, today we are going to start a new chapter of biology, that is fundamental unit of life. This is of grade 9. Now beginning with the introduction. All living organisms in this universe are made up of cells. Plants, animals, insects, microorganisms, they all are made up of cells. Now second point says that they can either be unicellular or they can be multicellular. It means the organism may be made up of just one single cell or of many cells altogether. The definition of the cell, it is the structural and functional unit of life. It is the structural and functional unit of life. Now, why it is known as structural unit of life? Because it provides structure to our body. Why it is known as functional unit of life? Because all the functions of the body take place at cell level. Now, the terms related to cell, cytology. Kids, cyto means cell and logy means study. So, the study of cells are known as cytology. It is the branch of biology dealing with study of structure and function of the cells. The device microscope is used to observe the cells. Now, to observe the cells, you need to stain those cells. You need to stain those cells, and those stains are known as biological stains, which are used for medical and biological industries to aid or help in detection of structures, that is cells within the tissues. Now, discoveries about cells. So the first discovery related to the cell was that a scientist named or a biologist named Robert Hooke in 1665 noticed the presence of cell in cork slide. So he has observed it in the cork slides, and cork, as you know, is made up of wood. So it was actually what he observed was dead cells. It appeared like a honeycomb structure. That's why he named it, to him, it appeared like a compartment or an empty room. That's why he called it cellula, and from the word cellula, the name cell has been derived. Another scientist named Anton van Leeuwenhoek, in year 1674, he observed or found the presence of living cell in the pond water. So kids, you need to remember over here what Robert Hooke observed was a dead cell, and what Anton van Leeuwenhoek observed was the living cell. Now came the next discovery by Robert Brown in 1831, that he recognized the existence of nucleus in the cell. You know that nucleus is known as brain of the cell. We will be studying in detail about it in the coming slides. Another scientist named Perkin J in 1839 invented the term protoplasm. What is protoplasm? Protoplasm is nucleus plus cytoplasm, which is the liquid present in the cell. Now, it's very important. These 2 points are very important. Sheldon and Shawn, a zoologist and a biologist, they found out something in year 1838 and 1839, and they gave a theory named as cell theory. Now, they presented the cell theory that all organisms are actually made up of cell. Then in 1855, many years later, in 1855, another scientist named Virchow, he suggested one more point which was added as an additional point, and the cell theory was updated with the 3 points. Suggested that, and what he suggested that all cells come from cells that already exist in nature. Now kids, coming to the cell theory, a theory which defines the cell. The 3 basic components of cell theory are now complete. The first one is all organisms are composed of one or more cells. All organisms are composed of one or more cells. Second point, the cell is the basic unit of life in all living things. The third point, which was given by Virchow, all cells are produced by the division of pre-existing cells. The pre-existing cells. Now, compound microscope. So kids, to observe the cell, you need to have a microscope. And here we are going to study the structure of compound microscope in, like, see, as you can see the structure over here, this part is known as eyepiece, from where you observe, right? And As you can see, this is known as the body tube, and two adjustments are given over here, the coarse adjustment and the fine adjustment. And this is known as the arm, which is attaching the body tube to the base. Now, this is known as the stage and the base. And as you can see over here, a slide is placed. On this slide, your specimen is kept for observation. And here is a mirror which helps in the reflection of light, with the help of which your specimen is visible with the help of the lenses and the mirror. Now, types of organisms on the basis of number of cells: unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular is made up of one cell. Multicellular is made up of more than one cell. They are single cell, and the single cell performs all life functions. For example, eating, reproducing, getting rid of waste, movement. Example of unicellular is amoeba and bacteria. Multicellular organisms have specialized cells, and those specialized cells perform different life functions. That is, like nerve cell do its own function, muscular cells do its own another function, and the example given here is of humans. Now, type of cells based on the shape and the size of the cell. Cell vary in shape and size. They may be oval, they may be spherical, rectangular, spindle-shaped, or totally irregular like nerve cells. The size of cells also varies in different organisms. Most of the cells are microscopic in size, like red blood cells, while some cells are fairly large like our nerve cells. Now, here you can see the structure of the red blood cell and the structure of muscle cell are totally different compared to the structure of the stomata, which is enclosed by the guard cell. Then the nerve cell, here one microscopic unicellular organism, the paramecium and the diatom. Now, the cells can be categorized into two types. First one is prokaryotic cells and second one is eukaryotic cells. Kids, pro means primitive and karyos means nucleus. So those cells in which the nucleus is very much primitive in nature is known as prokaryotic cells. Eu means developed and karyos means nucleus. So those cells in which the nucleus is developed is known as eukaryotic cells. Now, prokaryotic cells are very minute in size. They are very minute in size. Eukaryotic cells are fairly large in size compared to the prokaryotic cells. Now, nuclear region, which is known as nuclide in prokaryotic cells, is not surrounded by nuclear membrane. It means that prokaryotic cells does not have any nuclear envelope or nuclear membrane, but eukaryotic cells do have nuclear membrane. Single chromosome is present in prokaryotic cells, but in eukaryotic cell, more than one chromosomes are present. Now, here nucleolus is absent, but in them nucleolus is present. Membrane-bound cell organelles are absent and membrane-bound cell organelles are present. We are going to study about membrane-bound cell organelles in detail further in this chapter. So, as I have already explained you all the 3 points of cell theory. Now, coming to the parts of cell. So, what are the 3 main parts of the cell? The cell membrane or the cell wall, cell membrane, cell wall, cytoplasm, and the nucleus. So firstly, we will be studying about the cell membrane, which is also known as plasma membrane. We will be studying about the structure and function of the plasma membrane. Now, this plasma membrane or cell membrane, it separates the internal environment of cell from its surrounding, regulates what material enter and leave the cell. And this cell membrane is made up of 2 layers of phospholipid. Phospholipid means phospho head and the lipid tail with protein embedded throughout. Now, fluid consistency like a light oil and mosaic pattern of a protein. That's why, due to the presence of phospholipid, it is also known as phospholipid bilayer, and due to its mosaic pattern, it is also known as fluid mosaic model. Now, look into the structure of our cell membrane or plasma membrane. See kids, this is the phosphohead and these are the tail. These tails are lipidic in nature and this is the phosphohead. Now, altogether, this is known as lipid bilayer. One layer is here and another layer is here. In between these lipid bilayer, there is presence of proteins which are embedded between the layers. Now, what is the cell membrane made up of? Phosphohead, which is polar in nature. Okay, so always points towards water, which means it is hydrophilic, that is water loving. Now, lipid tails, which are non-polar, so always point away from water, which means hydrophobic, means water hating in nature. You can see that phosphohead is in connection with the water because it is water loving in nature, and lipid tail are hydrophobic in nature, so they are not in connection with the water. Now, a term related to exchange of anything between the cells. So there is an important term, that is diffusion. The net movement of particle. The net movement of particle from area of high concentration to an area of low concentration is known as diffusion. Net movement of a particle. They are saying that movement of any particle from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Kids, you can see over here, green color dot is more and towards this side it is less. So the concentration towards this side is less and concentration towards this side is higher. So the movement is taking place from higher to the lower. And this is the process of diffusion. Movement of anything from its higher concentration to the lower concentration is known as diffusion. Now, due to random movement of the particles, this occurs due to the random movement of the particle. Now, diffusion is a passive process, which means that no energy is needed. It is a passive process. Why we call it as a passive process? Any process is passive when no energy is required. Now, another topic is of osmosis. Osmosis is a process in which water moves from the region of higher concentration to one where its concentration is low through a semi-permeable membrane. So kids, diffusion is nothing but osmosis is nothing but